and welcome back to another episode of Wellness from Scratch. My name is Marissa Jackson, and today I'm here with Janel Ohletz, and we're going to be talking about her book, and she's going to share her knowledge on how to start goals, how we can pick ourselves up when we get setback, or, just how we can live a more happy and fulfilled life. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So, can you share a moment that inspired you to pursue a career in sustainability and regenerative practices?
Well, in actuality, that came from how I grew up. I grew up on a subsistence farm. So for me, I was steeped in just seeing, like, I had to milk a cow as a child, where that food came from, and being really connected to the land. This is kind of just part of me. My mom always talked about, using the compost on the field, and how not to use the 10-10-10 fertilizer. She would kind of point at the neighbor's field at how blonde his soil was, and it was not had no nutrients left in it. And so from that, it just kind of began that path of feeling like we are not away from nature. We are in part of it, just like any other animal, and it's essential for us for our life. And more now, research comes out how us, when we get out in nature, it's better for us, better for our mental health. And so with that, and because I grew up on a farm and then ended up back in agriculture after leaving it for quite a while, as I was a chef for 20 years, and even then still focused on food, because the flavor of food is so impacted on like how it's raised. And from there, it's like just connecting all the dots. I went on to get my PhD in soil science, and kind of linked when I was a chef and had a bed and breakfast that was a sustainable in through with the agriculture and local food systems. And so kind of bring it all into one big systems thinking way of looking at ecosystem and our own health as well.
That is amazing. And as a former farmer, the quality of the soil is so important because if you don't have a good foundation, how are you going to grow good produce or whatever it is? What has motivated you to pursue so many degrees and certifications, and how have they shaped your career path?
Well, it kind of took me a little while to find myself. In high school, it's like, I didn't know kind of what I wanted. I certainly at that point in my life wanted as far away from the farm as possible, because I grew up having to work on the farm with, chores all the time. And I wanted a more quote unquote normal life, and was a model for a while, did that. I was a wrangler at a dude ranch. I worked in tech as a support person. And then from there, I actually have an issue with my back where sitting for long periods of time could be really painful. So I was around 30 years old and totally just miserable and needing a change. I'm like, all right, I do something. And I was laying on the couch feeling sorry for myself, and a commercial came on about culinary school. I had always loved like Julia Child and like a frugal gourmet. Okay, I'm kind of dating myself, but I always loved cooking. And so I thought, well, yeah, I could be a chef. And then, like, I don't have to sit. So I went and got my culinary arts degree, and that's how I became a chef. Did that for 20 years, owned a bed and breakfast. And then through some life events that I talk about in the book that I have coming up in July of this year, I had to find something else to do. And my kids begged me not to go back to being a chef in someone else's restaurant, because I would work all the time. Chefs notoriously work 80 hours a week. And so I decided, well, I'll go back to school. And they happen to have a sustainable agriculture and food systems degree at the University of New Hampshire. And that was new, it was a couple of years old. And I thought, wow, that's perfect. It fit right in with what I had already been doing, teaching cooking classes at my bed and breakfast. And so from there, I didn't know as an undergraduate and before I went back to school that if you go into the sciences and you can get an assistantship, they actually will pay you to go to school to get your master's degree. So I got an assistantship. I got paid a small stipend as well as the tuition reimbursed. And you're basically a research assistant for the professor that you're working with on the research project. And then you write that up and you get your master's degree. And I love that so much And here I am now in basically my piece now, that I decided I would get my PhD. So I thought, well, you know, I really love the teaching. And at this point, I'm kind of like in school and learning. And so I got accepted to a USDA National Needs Fellowship at NC State to study soil science. It's actually interdisciplinary degree looking at remote sensing, and I'm using machine learning. It was really high tech, pushed the limits of my ability to learn for sure. And that's kind of where I was just driven because of this thought that, 20 years ago, I knew climate change was going to really be an impactful thing if we didn't do anything about it. And I just want to be part of making a difference. And I felt like that was what was really driving me, is to be that voice for change and helping to get the message out wherever I could. So that's how I kind of ended up on that path. So now I'm, my doctorate in soil science with a specialty in soil fertility. But all along the way, I've broadened that out to link it to food, the local food system, because I grew up on a farm and I have that understanding of the plight of really a farmer and what it's like to be, especially a small farmer. I can feel like I kind of have a better understanding than maybe someone who just got a PhD but didn't have the background in the actual applied real life part of that.
Absolutely right, because you were basically in the field of what you learned, and some people might just be more theoretical. When you get hands-on experience in life, it really does take things to the next level. Let's see. How did your childhood experiences influence your passion for helping others and living authentically?
Wow. I think it would be my mom. She's just the most pure heart. I get emotional thinking about it. She's still alive, but
That's
my
beautiful.
my father passed away last year. We did not have a very good relationship, but he taught me a lot. I'm seeing that now looking back in my life, and in my memoir that will be out in July. It was healing and writing that and seeing that they were just trying to make a living and they were working hard, and their pride drove them. And so that example that my mother always showed, she never complained. She would be up in the morning feeding her animals, the chickens, the rabbits. She bred like all sorts of fancy chickens that she would hatch the eggs out and sell those, and rabbits and ducks and geese, and she would take care of those. And she never complained ever about being tired. And I just think like, wow, like I hope I can be like that and not and just be the example of the hard work it takes to get where you need to go in a tough time. And so that is kind of like, just I'm an open book and feel like I won't want to compromise my moral compass that I was instilled in me by my parents to make a difference. And it's like, well, we can all wallow in our self-pity and we can feel like the world is stacked against us. But regardless of whether we actually do something or we sit and wallow in our self-pity, the problem is still going on. And so I feel like if I can just continue to make a difference and work towards that goal, that at least I didn't sit around doing nothing.
What is the biggest lesson you've learned from experiencing your heart attack at 48, and how has it changed your perspective on life and health?
Well, it was a big game changer. Of course, I looked like I did now, except maybe sans a couple of wrinkles. But it was my second year as a PhD student. I always used to joke like, well, they say a PhD just about kill you, but it wasn't really that. It was found out I actually have a disease called fibromuscular dysplasia, which causes the arteries to be malformed, meaning more tortuous and looking like a bead of pearls. So there's more resistance. And so I've always lifted weights. I've always enjoyed intense exercise, running. I'd run a marathon. I was running at 10 miles at least a couple of days a week at that point. And I love sprinting. I love pushing my body. And because I didn't know I had this. And it was through that eventually the artery dissected in my heart. And then, of course, that dissection caused basically like where the blood got in through that dissection and caused a blockage and caused a heart attack. Now, I didn't, at first, I was like, I get this chest pain. I'm on the treadmill. And I thought, wow, I feel a little lightheaded. And my now husband was next to me on the treadmill. I didn't want to alarm him. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go over and stretch. I'm just really tired today. So I sit there and I'm Googling like heart attack patients and women to figure, because I'm like, wow, okay, because I was still in denial. There was like, I couldn't be having a heart attack. I'm healthy. I've always eaten right. I don't have high cholesterol. So I ended up going to the emergency room because it kept happening. I had at one point really literally thought I was going to just die. And every time I would lay down, it would stop. So I go to the emergency room. Of course, they treat me like I'm looking for opioids or whatever. They don't believe I am having a heart attack.
Mm.
And they take a couple of blood tests. And finally, in actuality, they come back. It was like 5 hours later. And the whole time I'm going, did I imagine it? Maybe it was just, like I ate a peanut butter sandwich, it just stuck or whatever. And it taught me a huge lesson in advocating for myself. And one of the kind of issues, and this is called a SCAD, it's the spontaneous coronary artery dissection. And women are especially susceptible to it. Women right after giving birth, within 6 weeks of giving birth, or when they are around menopause. And there are women who get misdiagnosed, sent home, and then later pass away, unfortunately. And it has nothing to do with whether you are overweight or whether you have high cholesterol. It is purely because they believe a hormone shift. And so there's more research. It's actually a SCAD alliance now so that we can get the word out. So I'm very happy to talk about this because I think awareness is important. But after having that heart attack, that really shuffled my priorities immensely because I faced death. So I was like, okay, like one, I'm less scared to take on challenges, but I did, because of the disease, have to change some of my lifestyle. Like, I can't go bungee jumping, not that I would have anyway, or skydiving, wouldn't do that either. But even like looking up and to like paint a ceiling, I can't do that because my arteries, I could end up, if I were to have it develop in my neck, I could have a stroke. I do have it in my kidney. I actually have fibromuscular dysplasia in my arm as well as both my legs. So at any point, like those arteries, if they dissect, I could have issues. So I went from like the typical, like go to the doctor once a year for a checkup to having a boatload of specialists and learning how to navigate the medical system and advocate for myself and try and have patience with all that. And then that is the biggest driver to why I now focus my energies on making a difference, because it's not about the stuff. It's not about anything other than taking my knowledge and spreading it out and trying to spread beauty into the world, because I could have another heart attack at any point. And so I live each day like it is my last. I tell everyone I love them because it could be no tomorrow.
Yeah, that is such a huge point that I think a lot of people miss, especially with American culture and being so obsessed with items. And we put so much emphasis on, oh, do you have that, bag, or did you get those shoes, or oh, he does, whatever it is. It's like the true importance in life is our relationships, the connections we build, the memories we have. As a lot of the listeners know, I live in New Zealand, and the system over here is just so much different. And I do believe you still have to advocate for yourself some ways, especially as women. I think sometimes people don't take us seriously. How did you find strength to rebuild after losing your dream business and declaring bankruptcy?
Yes. Uh, well, it was hard. I did wallow in my self-pity a little bit there for a while, because I was like, that was my dream business back then. I put my heart and soul into that. And trying to say that I bought it 2007, February, right? And then 2008 happened, and like tourist business and all that, not a thing. And so I got creative. I found ways to do it, but it was just through a divorce, finding a lump, and all of that then ends up with just a perfect storm of bad things happening beyond my control that I needed to pick myself back up. And again, it's like all of that stuff is happening. It's a challenge, but I grew up being poor and always having to adapt. So perhaps because of the adversity I had from those experiences gave me the grit. And I believe I come by it genetically, being very stubborn, and not taking no for an answer. And so I just got creative, and I'm like, well, I'm 46 something. I think I'm 42 at the time. And I'm like, well, okay, I got to do something. And what do I like? What do I have? And I just looked up the university catalog and I'm like, okay. And at that point, because the economy was still trying to get back on track, and because I was a single mom at this point who had just filed bankruptcy and had no money, I was able to get some grants to help me get back to going to school. But I also, um, the university had the buses that drive people around campus. They were hiring and they would get, train me to get my CDL and they would work around my schedule. I had people that could help out with my kids when I was working. And so I was able to just kind of like eke out a living to get my bachelor's degree. And my mother did own a garden center at that point. And so I was able to work there when she needed me and help out that way. I found ways to make it creative to put the pieces of the puzzle together, but I really just kept when I got knocked down or would barely have enough money to pay any bills. I just kept going, well, I can't control that. I can control like get another job, work a little bit more hours, figure out what I can do to problem solve. But there were days where I just said, well, today is not the day to worry about it. I'm gonna see what happens tomorrow. And it was always something would happen where if you put the positive vibe out there in the universe, I think it does tend to kind of come back to you. And it wasn't easy for sure. It's not like it was a light switch and they're like, oh, because I was helping my kids with homework. I was making sure that the food was on the table for them, that they were taken care of. And it was after all of those things that I had the opportunity to do my own homework. And I would get up at, 5 in the morning, do some more homework, get the kids off to school, go to school myself, work there, and then work on the weekends with my mom. I was fortunate at the garden center. I brought my kids with me. So it was easy to do that. And two of my older kids, they were at that point much older, and so they didn't really need much of mom around.
Right, absolutely. And it just sounds like you really cultivated a resilience because your mindset is so strong. And I think a lot of people don't have that same mindset where I think more people should have that mindset that, I'm not in control of these things, but what I am in control of is ABC, whatever it is, and that is where strength truly is built.
Yes, you got to learn to let go of the things. That's the serenity prayer, really,
Mm,
and you have to let go of those things that you can't, that are beyond your control, because wasting the energy to worry about something that you're not going to fix is just a waste of energy, and it's going to drain you of the energy you're going to need to fix the things you can.
absolutely. Can you explain, for those who are unfamiliar, can you explain the concept of regenerative agriculture and why it's crucial for our planet?
Yeah, I love to talk about this subject. So, we have sustainable agriculture, and a lot of people talk about, well, why do we need regenerative? We already have sustainable. And I always put it in the point of view because, you're speaking to people. It's easier to put things in context that they can understand as themselves. So, you have two people, one is not feeling really well today, and the other person is healthy. Well, the healthy person would be quite happy to sustain that. But I don't think that the person who is not feeling well would be able to or want to sustain that. And our planet right now is probably not in its healthiest state. And so sustaining it isn't necessarily what we need to do. Regenerate so we can bring it back to health is an important concept. And so regenerative is really, it's a new way of saying what was done old days. The indigenous people have been using regenerative practices for eons, and we're just kind of making it new again or making it more popular. I think as a response to the fact that we are desperately trying to save the planet right now. And so regenerative agriculture is really utilizing the systems that are already there, the natural systems, and kind of working with them instead of working against them to build back the health of the soil, the ecosystem, and then ultimately the biosphere and hopefully the planet.
What are some simple, actionable steps people can take in their daily lives to support sustainability and regeneration?
Vote with your dollars if you can. I realize that not everybody has the choice. However, I do think that we've gotten addicted to processed foods and the things that come so easily. And we've gotten honestly addicted to cheap food, not nutritive food. So we could pay for it in the long run in our healthcare costs. So it's kind of like paying it forward by choosing more vegetables if you can, supporting your local farmer, and learning some skills to be able to prepare those things from scratch will go a long way in being able to eat healthier. And believe it or not, you can eat pretty well on a budget. I talk about like if you go to McDonald's, it's like $10. And I can tell you it's been a long time since I've been at McDonald's, so maybe it's more. I don't know. And you're just eating for you. So imagine there's like four of you. It's like $40. Well, I can put a darn good meal on the table for $40. And then if like, okay, you don't want to drive anywhere and you get Uber Eats and they come and bring it to you in the same time as that waiting for the delivery of that food, 20, 25 minutes, you could whip up a simple meal as long as you'd have the staples on hand. So it is eating as close to how it came out of the ground. And when we get more people to eat wholesome, fresh, nutrient-rich foods and demand that our food is nutrient-rich, the farmers in the whole agriculture complex will follow the dollars. And so those that can to make those choices for the long term does make a huge difference, is to choose local when you can, although local tomatoes in the middle of winter in Maine probably have a higher footprint carbon wise than a tomato coming from Peru. So there's that. So in thinking about and educating yourself and understanding the impact on the planet of the food choices, as well as like single-use plastic. I bring my own utensils with me when I bring my lunch to work, and I don't use any plastic wrap. I either beeswax or something like that. I just try through utilizing things that can be reused, because the whole like reduce, reuse, recycle. Reduce is the first thing. So like nix some of the things you can, then reuse is the second part. And then recycle's like the last like ditch effort of the whole cycle. So, but we just think, yeah, I can recycle it all as well.
Yeah. And so my husband is a Kiwi, which, for those of you who don't know, a Kiwi is a native born New Zealander. And when I brought him to America in 2024 to show him and have him meet my family, he was actually taken so back by the amount of plastic bags, plasticware, everything is wrapped in plastic, everything. He actually did have a culture shock. And honestly, I don't remember it being like that either. But then again, I was a child and I wasn't an adult. And I think that the amount of plastic America uses is absurd. And I'm not afraid to say it. It's absurd. Stop. Stop. Like,
Yeah, it is quite amazing. You know, I like Trader Joe's as a store, but I won't
yeah,
shop there because everything is single like package. There's so much packaging.
absolutely.
And so it's really tough. So I kind of look at ways to eliminate it as much as I can. Yeah, it's not easy. It's a
No.
choice and it takes a little bit remembering the grocery bag, right? How many times did I walk in the store and forget? And there are times where I'm like shoving them in my pocket, right? Because I'm like, well, I'm not getting a bag. I'm just gonna I'm gonna try to carry these 25 items out without a grocery bag. But when I was a kid, I remember actually when plastic bags were like just being the thing. And it was all like, use plastic to save the trees. What an amazing marketing campaign. It was like, we all thought plastic was good. And that was it. It was all just to sell plastic.
Absolutely. One thing I've definitely learned from becoming an adult is the power of marketing and how impactful marketing is on normal people that like, yeah, it's almost like a curtain has been pulled or something. But anyway.
Yeah, and education is just the thing, right? As soon as we educate the public, it's like all of a sudden they go, I had no idea. And I
And
had no idea until like I don't know, it was maybe 5 years ago I read an article and I'm like, right, I remember that. I remember the plastic bags. Like everyone's like had to break the paper bag habit.
yeah, right. That is wild. That is wild. Here in New Zealand, they outlawed all plastic bags. You can't get them anywhere. Yeah, you can't get them anywhere really. And like they if you forget your bag, there are like all only reusable bags like right in the area. But I am so bad at forgetting my bag still to this day. And honestly, I'm just thankful I have a husband who will carry it in the house for me. He's such a sweetheart, but
You're very
yeah.
lucky. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I am blessed. He is a cutie
Yeah, my
patootie.
husband's really great. Although right now he broke his arm on Wednesday. We went out for a lovely because we're in North Carolina and it snowed. And of course, being from New Hampshire, like I used to laugh at like the people in the South because a snowstorm would like, shut the whole place down.
Yeah,
But now I live here and I realize why. 1 inch of snow will handicap the place because they don't have any way to really salt the roads or treat the roads or anything.
right.
So we were out and we worked from home that day and we decided, well, I'm like, oh, let's go for a walk. And he slipped and broke his wrist on
Oh,
the ice.
yeah, accidents happen.
They do. And so now it's like, he's quite miserable at, at saying, apologizing how I need to take the lift. I'm like, don't worry, honey, I got this. I can handle it.
Yes, I got you. Oh,
Right.
awesome. So I guess we'll go on to that one. How does your work at Planted contribute to carbon capture, and why is technology important for combating climate change?
Well, that's a great question. So my work, I'm the director of agriculture. So we use a perennial grass to make building materials, and the whole premise behind it is actually they can capture carbon faster because a tree takes quite a long time before you're ever going to harvest it. So you got to wait around for that to happen. And then the same amount of space, the high biomass producing grass that we have identified or the founders identified over time can, because you're harvesting it every year over year, is about 3 to 4 times more carbon than the tree will capture, as well as we're able to utilize more of the carbon in the plant. So a lot of people don't know that like like a plywood or whatever we call OSB, it's oriented strand board, or some people call it particle board. They only capture 35% of the carbon when making that. The rest, actually, they burn the rest of the tree to dry the wood out in order to make the material. And so it's released back into the atmosphere when you burn that. And so for ours, we are one making our production plants electric, so we can take advantage of the renewable energy source as it comes available rather than diesel, which is how most of the other places will do it. And then at the same time, it's because it's a perennial, we're able to not disturb the land. And so we can, at the end of the day, when it comes off the assembly line, be a carbon negative building material. And so this technology, which two of the founders are from SpaceX, and so pretty smart guys. They actually worked on the life support for the Dragon spacecraft. And so while they were working on it, they had a lot of time to talk about carbon cycling. And I think they kind of thought, well, how can we like capture this free resource, carbon in the atmosphere, put it into something that everyone needs, monetize it, making a commercial business out of it, but at the same time, it's a positive feedback loop. The more we sell of it, the more carbon we capture. And then everybody needs houses. And so we're looking at the whole built environment, furniture, stick built homes, as well as even now the larger multi story structures because our material is stronger than wood. So because of that, it's another benefit to what we have. And so we're super excited. I'm this like second person they hired. So I've been there since the beginning. My whole job is to make sure we have the plants to put in the ground to grow. They grow healthy. I work with the farmers. We contract with farmers for that, and to make sure it gets then harvested. And as soon as it gets out of the field, I'm done. I don't need to manage with that anymore. But I love my job, getting to be part of the benefits of the planet are helping to draw that carbon down at the same time being able to have addressing another issue, which is the lack of supply for building material. I was an extension agent with Durham County. They happened to be in Durham and they approached me, and it was a job I couldn't turn down. Yeah. I get to be scientist all day long. It's so much fun. And I have a great team of people as well. So I'm very fortunate to have this creative people around me that are so passionate about making a difference and a positive impact on the planet.
Absolutely. That it is so inspiring, and it really fills my cup up to know that there are things, happening in the world that are making it better. Oh, that it's beautiful. What advice do you have for people who want to grow their own food but feel intimidated by the process?
Yeah, it can be intimidating. I know my mom, when I was at her garden center, when people would come and they'd ask for advice, and you start small. Perhaps it's even just a little 5-gallon bucket with drill some holes in the bottom. They need drainage. But a tomato plant, because everyone loves tomatoes, and that's an easy one to grow. And there's so many resources out there, whether it is books, or YouTube videos, and there, or even just finding a local person who does gardening to come and say, hey, I would love to help, or a local farmer to say, hey, I don't know much, but I would love to volunteer to help out, and in exchange, just like learn. It's like you paying tuition by being in there and getting it. Because I think sometimes it's like you pick up things just by seeing other people. Because if you don't know what you don't know the right questions to ask. And so sometimes it is just getting in there, getting your hands dirty. And then from there, like slowly trying. Beans are a super easy one to grow, right? I mean, Jack and the Beanstalk, heck, he just threw them out the window and they grew, right? So they are very easy. It's why they use them in kids, first grade. The kids put the little bean in the cup because it's pretty foolproof. So you can try doing a few of those things, and then from there, you will have failures. It's okay. That is the best teacher, because then you're going to know, oh, okay, I've got to figure out why this is. And then now you know what questions. Exactly. Just go jump in the mud. Actually, you should never work with wet soil. It's very bad for it.
How does understanding food systems and agriculture enhance our relationship with food?
It's super, super important. One is like the price of food and how it gets to our table or even to our grocery store. Who picks it? How much labor is that? And that's where it goes back to that like gardening question of doing it yourself. Once you've done it, now you realize like the value of what that is. And that local food system, any local enterprise, small business, the money comes back into the community. Those farmers work and live and are part of that community. Versus when we get it from these huge agri spaces, they have no incentive to invest in the local economy. And that money goes off to, I don't even know what, some stock market somewhere. And those farmers, when we saw with COVID, that was the local farmers that you could find a place, you could find the food that you needed. Um, and when the grocery stores were out, like you could find it predominantly from the local farmers that were already there. And it spurred a lot of more small farmers to spring up. And I hope that that momentum continues. Because when we realize the energy and effort that goes into the food that we consume, one, we value it more, and two, we waste it less. Because we do have enough food to feed everyone on the planet. The problem is that we actually waste 40 to 45% of it. 40 to 45% never leaves the fields because it isn't pretty enough. And then we waste even more on we buy something and then we don't do anything with it, and it wilts, and I'm guilty of it. I'm less now than I used to be. You think you have all this intention, I'm going to make this big stew or whatever, and then life gets busy, or you just look at it and go, oh, I don't want to do it today. And then, that's why I have a compost pile, because at the very least, I can feed the microbes that'll recycle it to go back in my garden again.
Can you share tips for creating meals that are both sustainable and nourishing for the mind and body?
Sure. So first it's, what do you like? What flavors do you like? It's really important to understand that. And if you're just starting out, finding some really simple recipes that get your opportunity to get your feet wet, that, you're going to learn like the big thing, mise en place, which is basically everything in its place. You chop the vegetables, get everything measured out. That'll help you when you start and heat that pan up to get going, and not be stuck with, like I've done it too, burn the onions while you're chopping something else because you're not paying attention to it. So finding the simple recipes and then beginning to build on those are going to help having the staples on hand, like always have the onions, the celery, the carrots. Really, that can build you a main meal. Having some beans, canned beans, or, even dried beans will work as well. If that takes a little bit of skill to get those cooked to be the right texture. And then having things like whole grain rice. I make my own sourdough, so I always have flour on hand as well. I love to make pasta, but you can buy the pasta and have that around as well. Having eggs for sure and lots of vegetables that you can play with. But if you're a person whose schedule's erratic, stick with frozen vegetables. They are flash frozen, so their nutrients amount is pretty much about the same. So when you have those stock items, and speaking of stock, having some broth or stock as well, because you can throw something together really quickly once you've got a few ideas in mind. I mean, if you just took some chicken breast and you put like Burberry spice on it, little salt, little pepper, threw it in a sheet pan with olive oil, threw some vegetables that were just chopped up around it and threw it in the oven and let it bake, like everything's going to pretty much be ready and all at the same time. And then you can totally just cook. And then maybe if you want a carbohydrate, you'd have something that you're cooking while that's in the oven, or some sourdough bread with some nice butter on it, and you're good to go.
What advice do you have for busy individuals who want to cook sustainably but feel they lack time and skills?
Yes. Well, I'm certainly working on putting together some classes, and that will start to teach that and be able to get the basics to understand what it's like to build a sauce. And once you understand the underlying kind of premise of how to make a roux and then deglaze a pan and get some of those basic things, it's like you could take any plain old ordinary meat or protein item and sauce it up, and it boom, you've got that right quite quickly. And using herbs and spices to take something that is just a basic vegetable and saucing it up a little bit, spicing it up a little bit, and making it interesting. We also eat with our eyes, right? So color, blending those colors in, finding someone to help guide you, find some YouTube videos, find some simple recipes. One website I really like is Meal Lime. It's an app actually, and it has all the recipes are like less than 40 minutes, and they're super easy. They're super colorful and really healthy and balanced. And they're not hard to do. So that's the nice thing. It's like, you chop a couple of vegetables and maybe saute a few things. And my 20-year-old daughter uses it and is like able to make the meals, and then she'll make one big meal and then she's parts it out for being able to have meals through the week. And she's like, yeah, mom, I can eat for less than $50 a week because I'm making my own meals.
What tools and strategies helped you overcome the emotional and financial challenges of losing your business and everything that came with it?
So the main thing was to focus on the big picture, the big goal, the overarching end. So you have to have the big dream. And so I had that, and the big thing, but eating an elephant's kind of hard if you try to swallow it all whole. So you've got to kind of break it up. So like, okay, I've got the overarching thing. I need a new degree. All right, I need a new career. So that's like the hill I'm going to climb. That's the top. That's the pinnacle. But you have a lot of steps you got to do along the way. So you do have to focus on where you're putting your feet as you go, as you climb that mountain. So each day you focus on something small. What can I do today? And if it seemed overwhelming, I would break that up as what can I do within this hour? And if that was even overwhelming, it's what can I do in this minute? And maybe it's take a nap. Maybe it's breathe in and breathe out. Maybe it's take a walk to get perspective. I think one of the things that I learned, and this was later on, but I probably already kind of innately knew it, was when you get frustrated with a problem, our non-conscious mind is 40 times more powerful than our conscious mind. And so when we have a problem, say it's a math problem, and you can't figure out the answer and you get really frustrated and you start spinning out of control and you have a tantrum and you maybe throw things, or maybe that was just me, and you're like, I can't figure this out. I'm too stupid. That's at the point where you set that damn pencil down and you walk away. And then I'm sure everyone has had this happen where you get frustrated with something and then the next day you look back at it and you're like, Well, duh, it's right there. Like, I don't know how I didn't see it. Well, that's because our non-conscious mind is like a supercomputer crunching that, iterating it, and figuring it out and matching up all the information and knowledge that we've learned all the way up until that point. We have the answer within us, but we have to give our non-conscious mind or subconscious mind the time to process it. So walk away and find something else to do something relaxing, center yourself a little bit better, and then come back to that problem. Getting overwhelmed and getting frustrated will just lead to feeling like you're not going to make it. You start that negative talk, I'm not worth it, or whatever. It's super, super important instead to just take self-care, get a cup of tea, go for a walk, do some yoga, whatever it is. For me, it's like knitting or quilting. As you can see behind me, I've got this quilt in progress that's because I'm working on my book. It's still been like that for months. It will get finished. And it is that kind of thing that allows you to just let go of that stress and then the next day come back to that and you'll climb that mountain and get up there to the top.
Right. Sometimes we just need to take a break and let our minds breathe from what we're doing because we're too caught up. And it's just like when things happen in your personal life and you can't see what's going on until you take a step back and assess things from a different angle, you know?
Absolutely. That is a really great statement for sure. You need to just step back.
How can women build resilience and find courage to pursue their authentic lives even after setbacks?
They have to believe in themselves. I think, I certainly, and I'm not only going to speak for myself in that I grew up with women, you're gonna get married and some man's gonna take care of you and you have to know how to caretake. But you don't have the strength to be out on your own. And that you, yes, go get a job, and all that. But really, ultimately, it's not about you, it's about taking care of others. And I think we've kind of lost that we have the strength within us. And I find that when we're strong enough and we attract strength, my third husband, once I figured that out, like I attracted a man who fits me, gets me, understands me, and supports me in what I do instead of what I had before because I was very insecure is I attracted people that took advantage of that need to have someone who took care of me. And then when I would start to get that strength and standing on my own 2 feet, they felt threatened. And then that causes all sorts of issues in the relationship. And so I would say for women, first and foremost, you are strong enough to do whatever it is that you have your mind to do. You have to first and foremost believe in yourself. Other people believe in you. Those that love you unconditionally believe in you. But that belief isn't what's going to get you there. That's going to support you along the way when you need somebody to lean on. But you have to take the steps and you have to be the one to make it towards that goal. And you have that strength. But when people have been beaten down and don't have that belief, it's really hard to convince them that they have it.
What practices do you recommend for maintaining mental and emotional health during stressful times?
Breathe in, breathe out. First and foremost is big, deep breaths and giving yourself permission to take time and take care of yourself. It's like if anyone has ever flown on an airplane, they'll tell you put the mask on you before helping others. Because when you don't have the strength for yourself, you certainly are not going to have the strength for anyone else. So I think that's the first and foremost thing we need to do.
I couldn't agree more. It's like being on the farm. How are you going to take care of the cows or the plants if you're not at your peak? If you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of the farm or the animals because they depend on you. And the people in our lives depend on us to be our best selves. And we owe it to them and us to push through hard times.
Absolutely. It's like, what example are we giving both our boys and girls? First,
Yes.
what we example that we give our girls is like, you should not care about yourself. You should only care about others. And then the example we show men is that women are there only to serve the needs of others. And it's not okay for mom to take some time out. And we're raising this kind of society that it's like we don't want people to be selfish, but yet we see when we do something for ourselves as selfish, but it isn't. It's selfless because we won't be able to take care of others if we don't take care of them.
You're right. Right. These things are not selfish. And I also find that with mothers, we are so hard on ourselves because we do want to give our babies the best lives we can. And that comes with a lot of pressure. And I think we just have to be nicer to ourselves because we're all doing a great job as moms. You are doing
Yeah.
a great job.
Exactly. And be kind to the mom who's struggling, who's in the grocery store, who has the kid that clearly needs a nap. I always try to remember that, I was there once too, and like to go say, like, take your bratty kid out, like, offer to try to distract or find a way to help and give kindness to others because we never know what that person is going through.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. You share a sneak peek of your upcoming book and its key takeaways for readers seeking self-improvement.
So it is a memoir that follows my journey from the farm to the fork, and that's kind of the name of it. Is the least the working title right now is of From Farm to Fork. It might be Between Farm and Fork. My journey to finding my true path, and it really is. Each chapter has a lesson that I've been able to pull from that point in my life that can be applied to anyone who reads that book, whether that is learning. How to deal with the trauma of my kind of abusive parent and dealing with that and finding that though I had those moments, if I look back and rewrite that narrative in my mind that I'm going to leave the bad stuff back there and I'm going to take the lessons of strength that I did learn from that and creativity and problem solving. So I take that through my life as I follow the different places that I overcame challenges, fell flat on my face in multiple ways, and then come back out of it through going back to school. And each chapter has a lesson. The whole premise is that we are all born with the tools to success. We just need to learn how to use them. And sometimes we have to uncover them by getting through some of our unresolved trauma to first be able to then reach in and access the.
That is such a powerful message. What are the most common roadblocks people face in the kitchen? And how does your culinary coaching program address them?
First is, I think, addressing being able to set goals and overcoming challenges. So I think it's almost like the personal growth phase has to happen first to like convince yourself that you are smart enough, strong enough, and creative enough to be okay in the kitchen. When I was teaching cooking classes back, when I had the bed and breakfast, it's like teach the basic things that you learn, the building blocks, the foundation. So first and foremost, I don't just teach a recipe as the recipe is itself. As I teach, I am teaching the basic foundation of that recipe. That once you know why a recipe is structured the way it is, you can start to change it and create things on your own, like teaching a pericardium scone. Well, a cream scone can be turned into anything other scone by just changing the different fruits, nuts, and things like that, and even flour within that, as long as you maintain the ratio. So the classes that I teach are always teaching people not just you can only make this recipe, is actually you could take this and now you can make 100 different recipes because you understand why something is cooked this way and what deglazing is or what spices. Well, if you don't have one spice, sub it with another. Get creative. Now you've already created your own dish. People
Abs-
they're perfectionists. I think people that are perfectionists get like deer in the headlights when they go to do a recipe and they're like, I can't do that recipe. I don't have every ingredient on hand. Right? Well, just
yeah.
kind of get close.
Right. It's all about a feeling like I'm not kidding. I posted an Instagram story this week about cookies and how I'm having a rough week, so I made cookies. I didn't have any butter. So you know what I did? I used coconut cream and cream cheese, and those cookies came out so good. And it's all about just making it work with what you got?
Exactly. Honestly, that's how so many recipes have been created. There's
Absolutely.
there's there's so many culinary stories that
Yeah.
are came out of accidents. Like tarte
Absolutely.
tatin, right?
Yeah.
That's upside down. And it's because they forgot the crust on the bottom. And so they were like, oh no. And so they thought, well, we'll save this. We'll flip it over. And then they were going to put the crust, but they saw how that butter and the sugars and the apples all caramelized.
Yeah.
And tarte tatin was born.
They were like, oh, we're on to something here.
Exactly.
That's amazing. That is, and that's where I feel like joy is truly sparked when you like in a general sense is when you become surprised or like things turn out when you didn't think that they would, with food or everything. That's where, the foundation of joy is built.
I totally agree. I think that's where give yourself license to be creative and honestly screw up. You're gonna screw up. And sometimes screw ups are like the best. Granted, it gets hard to
Yeah.
recreate it
Right.
when
Yeah.
you don't realize what you screwed up. But for sure, it's that's where you could have fun.
And my last question for you here is, what's your advice for someone who feels stuck in life and is searching for their true path or passion?
Dig deep inside yourself and find out what to use what you said sparks joy, right? What truly is something that you're doing that time when you're doing it goes away, or you're not dreading doing it. You're on to something when you find that thing. Don't chase the career or the path that others put in front of you. You have to find that path that resonates, that truly feels like that puzzle piece clicking into place. Sometimes I think we almost like are afraid to dare to dream to do that. Like maybe you're a person who just absolutely love doodling, but you were brought up to realize, oh, starving artists. Like, yeah, being an artist, you'll starve. But that's the thing that brings you joy. I guarantee you, if you go down that path, you will be enough. It will be the right path. You will find a way because that's the right fit. That's the authentic space that you're supposed to be in. And when you have that joy and that passion, it's just going to be a wave and a ripple that's going to go out to the universe and attract people to want to have your art, to be able to sustain yourself because you're where you're supposed to be.
Absolutely. That is such a strong and beautiful message.
So, really, my main goal through the fact that I focus on regenerative and sustainability is linking that to building that passion and creativity for cooking and bringing that back to instead of just focusing on sustainability of the planet, let's focus on sustainability of ourselves and learning how to break the processed food habit and learn how to gain those skills so that you can nourish both your body, but then your mind and your soul to be able to be at one with nature and feel a hell of a lot better at the same time.
Absolutely. I want to thank you so much for being with us today and sharing literally a wealth of knowledge. I have learned so much talking with you today. And yeah, I just want to thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure. It's always fun to share about all this. As you can tell, it's my passion to do it. That's where I finally found my path and passion is to be the conduit to teach others about food and sustainability and that they can get where they want to go by just believing in themselves. Thank you.
Absolutely. Hey guys, let me know what you think down in the comments below. And I'll see you next time. Bye.